One more really important thing that I learned yesterday, and that I actually heard on the Juice Box podcast as well, that I wanted to just mention here. I'm also going to try to figure out how to screen share so I can point to stuff because it's much easier if I can walk you through this. But the biggest thing that I'm going to try, and maybe we can try this together, is the idea of understanding when your micro adjustments slash whatever they're calling, the basal delivery is occurring makes a big difference on how long you should pre-bolus and what the spike or lack of spike might be after a meal. So what I mean is typically you're going to be getting those 5 minute intervals. You're going to get either 0 or zero point 0.5 or zero point 0.1 or whatever the case may be of micro basal adjustments. And when I was talking to the doctors at the Barbara Davis Center yesterday, they gave an example of let's imagine that you were sleeping, and you were sleeping at a good number. Let's say you were at 120, but the system was continuously giving you those micro adjustments to keep you at that level. So in theory, when you wake up and have breakfast, you might see, oh, I'm at a 120. I haven't taken any insulin, so I'm not considering any insulin on board. Let me go bolus for my meal. But in that example, there's a possibility that you could actually go low from your normal breakfast bolus because you actually have all of these micro adjustments on board that you might not have realized. The opposite can also be true. If you were in that example sleeping, but you were just kind of staying there, let's say your liver was not releasing sugar and you were at a nice smooth number and you had absolutely none of those micro basal adjustments on board, then when you took your breakfast bolus, you might go higher because there was nothing actually on board. So it's essentially less insulin in your system working. And so basically the way it was explained to me is get in the habit of paying attention to how much or when those micro adjustments have happened and where you're at before you take your meal bolus. It can either impact how much you would take for that bolus or in particular, how long you would pre-bolus. I'm thinking of it because I just had lunch and I did this for the first time and I saw that I had a whole lot of those micro adjustments in my system already. And so my pre-bolus today for lunch was only about 5 minutes. So TBD on how that works. But the best way to see it that they instructed me is if you go to your Omnipod, the controller, the CGM graph icon on the bottom right, if you open that, you're going to see a line chart that shows your Dexcom CGM readings, but underneath that, you're going to see different icons. It's like a thick red bar indicates when that those micro basal auto adjustments have been suspended. And so if you see that, you might be able to understand that, okay, there's less insulin in my system and therefore that impacts how long I should pre-bolus. Keep in mind also though, that a lot of times those micro adjustments are going to be suspended if your blood sugar is relatively low. So it's just a really helpful visual that I had actually never looked at. And again, in the next video, I'll try to figure out how to share the screen and show this, but maybe just start getting in the habit of clicking that bottom right CGM graph and looking at those red bars and the other icons to see what they mean and think about how that impacts the insulin that you have on board or don't have on board when you're planning for a meal. I think it's going to really help with some of those, like I had a couple of breakfasts the other day and I went really low after I had them. And I think it's because I had just woken up and I probably had a ton of those micro adjustments already on board that I just wasn't paying attention to. So moving forward, I'm going to really tune into that and see if it helps. So while it's kind of a scattered video, I just wanted to put that out there to recommend it as I think a good practice for anybody getting used to this. So give it a try. Let me know.